Picture a trading floor on Wall Street late at night. The lights are low, the human desks are mostly empty, but the screens are still alive, pulsing with charts and numbers. In the center of it all, an invisible mind is working through filings, market feeds, and risk models at machine speed. That mind is not just any system, it is built by Anthropic, the lab that promised to make AI safe for humanity. And the question hanging over this room is simple and chilling. When the safety company starts wiring its models into the heart of global finance, whose future is it really protecting? Anthropic built its brand on constitutional AI, on alignment research, on warning about Skynet-style disasters. They were the safety darling, the ones who split from OpenAI in 2021 to do things the right way. But now, that same lab is quietly rolling out sophisticated financial tools for hedge funds, megabanks, and quant firms that move trillions every day. And here is the part almost no one outside the industry sees. These are not cute chatbots summarizing earnings calls. They are agent-like systems targeting the exact work that gives Wall Street its edge. Behind closed doors, Anthropic is pitching tools that can ingest real-time market feeds, parse dense 10K reports, and help construct discounted cash flow models and trading strategies faster than any junior analyst. Internal demos, according to people familiar with them, focus on automating the very layer of quants and researchers that give institutional finance its informational advantage. That collides head-on with the company's carefully crafted image as guardians against systemic risk. And here is the pattern break. The lab warning that AI could destabilize the world is now wiring its models directly into one of the most systemically fragile sectors on Earth. Commentators like David Shapiro have started saying the quiet part out loud. In his video titled Anthropic Sells Out to Wall Street, he asks whether a company supposed to be pro-safety is now getting in bed with the very players that profit from opacity and speed. Is this just a smart business move, or is it a sign of something deeper, something like elite capture? In a minute, we will unpack what that term really means, but hold this in your mind. Wall Street is not using Claude to write poetry. It is using Claude to find basis points, front-run slower players, and squeeze inefficiencies out of already brittle markets. Anthropic's defenders have a ready answer. They say, if you are truly safety-pilled, anything that keeps Skynet at bay becomes morally acceptable. Partnering with hedge funds and megabanks is not selling out. It is a necessary compromise that funds alignment research and keeps Anthropic in the room when decisions about advanced AGI get made. If you believe misaligned AI could literally kill billions, then routing your models through Goldman Sachs looks like a rounding error on the cosmic ledger. But here is where the stakes get real for you and me. That logic sets up a stark, almost cartoonish choice, a cyberpunk hellscape or total extinction. Safety absolutists argue that an AI-enhanced world of militarized governance, biometric tracking, and full-spectrum financial automation is ugly but survivable. What they cannot tolerate, they say, is a world where some unaligned system wipes out humanity because the so-called good guys refuse to work with unsavory partners. But look around. High-frequency trading, predictive policing, and algorithmic management are not concept art. They are already here, and plugging Anthropic's most capable models into that stack accelerates concentration of power, not liberation. So the question stops being abstract philosophy and starts sounding like corporate strategy. Is this really a principled moral trade-off, or a convenient story that justifies chasing profit and political leverage? On Anthropic's website, Claude is still marketed as a tool for all, a democratizing force that will benefit everyone. But behind the scenes, access is stratified with bespoke features and capacity for finance and defense clients, while the public gets slower, safety-wrapped versions. And in a moment, we will zoom out and see how this fits into a much older playbook of power. Elite capture is not a conspiracy theory, it is a pattern. A new technology arrives wrapped in utopian language, promising openness and opportunity. Over time, its biggest gains are quietly routed to a small, well-connected class: corporate giants, financiers, and state security agencies. Everyone else gets the marketing slogans and throttled access. Think about railroads in the 19th century, sold as a way to knit nations together, but quickly dominated by a handful of barons who controlled tracks and freight rates. We saw the same thing with the early commercial internet. In the 1990s, it was all about decentralization and permissionless innovation. 2 decades later, a few platforms like Google, Amazon, Meta, and Apple dominate search, shopping, ads, and mobile distribution, taking a cut of almost every transaction and attention stream. The pattern is clear: open frontier, rapid consolidation, then regulatory capture. And here is the twist you might not like hearing. AI is now squarely in that danger zone. Training frontier models already requires billions in compute, proprietary data deals, and cloud contracts that only a handful of firms can sign. Public or open alternatives exist, but they run at smaller scales and lag on capabilities, like tiny independent internet providers trying to compete with national telecoms. Anthropic's quiet pivot into high-end financial tooling is just one data point in this broader consolidation story. When the same models that could help with climate science or pandemic response get tuned first for quant desks, the priorities speak louder than any safety blog post. This is where the stakes for jobs, markets, and democracy start to crystallize. You can spot elite capture of AI by watching for 6 red flags. First, control of bottlenecks, advanced chips, hyperscale cloud, data centers, and cheap power. When a few firms own those, everyone else rents reality from them, and training a frontier model for hundreds of millions of dollars is out of reach for universities or public institutions. Second, vertical integration. The same companies rushing to own the silicon, the cloud, the foundation models, the app stores, and the consumer interfaces. Third, explicit stratified access, where the best models run privately for defense and finance, while the public gets downgraded versions. Fourth, regulatory and narrative capture. Frontier labs help draft the very rules that govern them, then show up in front of Congress or the European Union as neutral experts. Safety talk about existential risk doubles as a lobbying framework that conveniently freezes smaller rivals out. Fifth, rent-seeking optimization, where AI is deployed first into high-frequency trading, hyper-targeted advertising, and worker surveillance, not into curing cancer or building public goods. Sixth, underpowered public alternatives, where open-source models exist but trail closed systems by orders of magnitude in scale and funding. Underneath all of this sits an infrastructure of control. A handful of companies own the physical stack that everyone else must rent. Start with cloud. Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud control a large majority of the global market. So if you want to train or deploy serious models, you are likely paying one of 3 gatekeepers by the GPU hour. Go a level down, and it gets even tighter. TSMC manufactures almost all of the world's most advanced chips, and NVIDIA controls close to 90% of AI accelerators in use today. Economists call this structure a natural monopoly. The physics of chip making and the capital costs of hyperscale cloud punish smaller entrants into irrelevance, even without explicit collusion. Competition in AI is no longer about who has the cleverest algorithm on GitHub. It is about who can secure tens of thousands of GPS, priority access to advanced fabrication nodes, and long-term contracts with those cloud giants. Without that, your breakthrough model is a demo, not a product. And here is the payoff. When Anthropic builds tools for Wall Street, it does so on a hardware stack already captured by a microscopic club. Capital is now the sharpest instrument of elite capture in AI. In 2023, big tech quietly bankrolled most generative AI startups, supplying well over half of all funding and turning ecosystem support into a dependency pipeline. Startups pitch themselves as disruptors, but when Microsoft, Google, Amazon, or NVIDIA sit on the cap table, they also sit on the roadmap. Now zoom out to 2025, where forecasts point to around $300 billion in AI-related spending in a single year. That rivals the annual economic output of entire countries. No university, nonprofit lab, or small nation-state can match that burn rate. A well-funded academic consortium might scrape together a few $100 million over several years. Big tech treats that as a rounding error on a single GPU contract. This $300 billion moat does not just buy hardware, it buys agenda-setting power. Whoever owns that infrastructure can decide which languages get good models, which industries receive tailored tools, and which regulators receive help drafting rules. And this is where your world quietly shifts, even if you never touch an AI model directly. When Anthropic, the safety lab, builds elite tools for Wall Street on top of this captured infrastructure, it sends a clear signal about who AI is really for. Safety language becomes a kind of branding layer, a moral gloss on top of a system optimized for rent-seeking and control. The real risk is not just rogue superintelligence, it is a future where a tiny club writes the rules of automation, finance, and information flow for everyone else. So, what do we do with that? Here is the forward pull. The choices we make now about openness, public investment, and access will decide whether AI becomes a public utility or a permanent toll booth. Reclaiming the promise of AI will not be easy, but it starts with seeing the game clearly. It means pushing for state backed compute and shared data infrastructure so that public interest labs are not forever priced out. It means questioning safety narratives that only ever seem to justify more centralization and more deference to the same three or four companies. And it means asking, every time you hear about a new partnership or safety framework, who gets access, who gets power, and who gets left with the slogans. Anthropic's Wall Street pivot is not just a business story, it is a warning flare. It shows how quickly safety talk can be absorbed into the same elite capture cycle we have seen with railroads, telecoms, and the internet itself. The danger is not only that AI might one day go rogue, but that long before that, it quietly becomes an engine for extracting value upward and locking everyone else into an infrastructure they do not control. If you care about where this goes next, your voice actually matters. So here is my ask. If you want more deep dives on how AI, finance, and power are colliding, hit subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. Drop a comment with where you stand on Anthropic's pivot, necessary evil, or clear sellout. And share this with someone who still thinks AI is just about cool chatbots, because the real story is happening in boardrooms and trading floors you never see. This is not just about Anthropic, it is about who gets to write the operating system of the future.